3, hit it!
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to today's Caffeine for the Soul. And today I want to talk about a disease I made up called emotophobia. And emotophobia is a fear that seems cultural. I don't think it's universal, but it's certainly prevalent in large swaths of Western culture, which is a fear of negative emotions. But it's not just like I'd prefer to be happy than sad. It's I must not feel sad. I must not feel scared. I must not get angry. I must not, whatever you don't think you're supposed to feel, whatever you go out of your way to avoid feeling, whatever you do things to make the feeling go away, that's the basis of your emotophobia. Now, I first saw it when I was teaching. I used to do phobia cures, and I was working in these big mass phobia cures in London, and the most common phobia was public speaking. And so we would have people come up, and because we had a big audience, we'd have like 500-600 people. It was pretty easy to test, right? Because you had a ready-made audience. So what would happen is me or one of the people I was working with would work with somebody on stage on their fear of public speaking, and then when they got comfortable, we'd have them go off and do it with each other because they were learning to do the work that we did. Well, one particular time, my friend was working with somebody, and they came up and they were genuinely terrified. It took a bunch of time to even get them to come up on stage and not look at the audience. And my friend, so on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is not scared at all and 10 is terrified, 10, right? It was like, oh, okay, this person is genuinely terrified. Well, he worked with them doing the stuff that we did and got that fear down to a 3. And I thought, wow, that was really a great demo. That was a great example, and was about to send the group off to go do it with each other when my friend went, not good enough, and spent another hour. It had only taken like 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes to get from a 10 to a 3, to try and get that 3 to a 0. Well, as I was watching it, I thought, well, that's a really funny thing to do. What's wrong with a 3? Like, what's wrong with being a little nervous when you're doing something? And I suddenly realized how much of my life was spent trying to not ever feel anything, and how in the way that got of living a full life, how self-conscious that forced me to be because I wasn't allowed to feel certain ways, so I had to continually be monitoring and trying to control my emotional weather. And the big insight that I had about it is there's no such thing as a solution to a feeling. Because we're human, because we think, because the nature of thought and consciousness is that it appears as though whatever's happening in our thoughts is really happening in the world, and we respond to it the way we might to a movie that we're really into, we're gonna feel stuff. Like, that's not up for grabs. That's non-optional if you're a human being, unless you work very, very hard to stifle it or drug it or eat it or shag it or drug it out of your system. But there's no such thing as a solution to a feeling. You're human. You're meant to feel stuff. And you don't have to do anything about it, because the nature of thought is it changes, which means the nature of feeling is it changes too. And it's almost like, the way I experience it, is there's this kind of roller coaster of emotion. So I'm really up, I'm really down, I'm feeling really excited, I'm feeling really upset, I'm feeling expansive, I'm feeling contracted. But that roller coaster is on a barge floating down a river. And that river is the river of life. It's pure aliveness. It's that well-being, sort of a background happiness that's ever present, regardless of how up or down we are in our feelings. And when you start to see that, it makes no sense to try to control your feelings. If you actually feel them, you'll notice they change really quickly. That was a revelation to me. Might sound obvious to you. I obviously didn't know that based on how much effort I put into not feeling certain things. I didn't like feeling fear. I didn't like feeling anger. So I would do all sorts of things to avoid feeling them. Once I realized that they don't do anything to you, they're just energy taking form in your body, it was like, oh, this is kind of fun. Once I wasn't afraid of my own experience, life got so much easier because all that energy that I used to spend trying to control my experience was now available to me, was available to life to just create a richer experience of being alive. And it points to one of my all-time favorite quotes from the Scottish mystic Sid Banks. If the only thing people learned was not to be afraid of their own experience, that alone would change the world. If the only thing you saw was that people feel, and there's no such thing as a solution to a feeling, feelings just come and go, then life itself becomes so much less scary. And when it's not scary, you become so much more present. And when you become that much more present, life becomes filled with the feeling of aliveness. Have fun, learn heaps, happy exploring, and I'll talk with you soon.